Ultrakill is a fast-paced first-person shooter where you, V1, move through the layers of hell, killing everything in your path and expanding your diverse array of weapons as you go. Demon Days is a, let's say, moderately paced first-person shooter where you collect one weapon and try to kill everything. So here's the plan. The gameplay is split up into two parts, days and nights. In the days, you run from a monster that is constantly tracking you down, and then you grab upgrades and complete mini-games to unlock more about the story and your powers. And then the other half of the game is triggered when you're caught by the... In the night portion of the game, it switches to a Sims type game where you have to scare a family to get more points, using the powers unlocked in the day before. This is where you have to balance gaining as many points as possible with being discovered and exercised by the Judge. Then just rinse and repeat until the end of the game. After all this planning was done, and an interesting game was demised, I realised I definitely was overscoping, and that would result in the same quality of game that I had previously made. So, with a heavy heart, I dropped the first half of the game and decided to make just the FPS in hell side of things. So here's the real plan. You wake up in hell and are a tortured prisoner. A demon releases you and says he's in trouble, and tells you to activate levers to turn on the lift to escape.
Yippee!
Each level will have a boss fight and swarms of enemies that will try to slow you down. The most important part of an FPS game like this is the movement, because if it doesn't feel right, then the whole game doesn't feel right. Thankfully, many people have made fairly good feeling movement based off of Quake, which is basically the old man movement of the gaming world. So let's just find a movement. Here's one by a fairly small YouTuber called Danny. And Control-C, Control-V, hippity-hoppity, your code is now my property. Very cool. Thank you, Danny. And now with some tweaking, the game now has some solid feeling movement. I even added my own dash feature, which has its own recharge system. With the movement part out of the way, I moved on to the interaction system. This is so the player can actually interact with objects, and I can make them go into other rooms and even have a shop that only has 1 point to buy anything. Next, I made the enemy system, and let's just say these sure are enemies. First, we have this guy, who is a guy. He's small and fast and doesn't do much damage, and also knocks you up into the air, which isn't intentional and is just something to do with its collider. But you know what? I like it, so it's a feature now. And then there's this guy, who's bigger and slower, but does more damage. There's not much to say about these guys. They use the Unity AI pathing and spawn around the player with a script I wrote. They also increase in the number that spawn per wave, so the game gets harder over time. I had a lot of trouble with the enemies because of the way I was doing damage. When I made them, I never implemented immunity frames for the player, so enemies would hit the player and do damage every frame, then crash Unity. But I fixed this so you wouldn't be obliterated by the smallest touch. Speaking of enemies, in each of the 3 level rooms I wanted to have different challenges, so one would be a boss and maybe another a puzzle. But I sort of got a bit lazy, so I just added the same eyeball boss 3 times. What? In fairness to me, I have been learning a lot of new stuff on the fly, and in the end, I spiced up the bosses so they have different attacks, and having enemies spawn in the second half to spice up the fights. Let's see, what else? The map's pretty basic, made it myself, and then I borrowed some assets from the asset store. I also added these green orbs that you have to collect so many of in between flicking levers, so it spices up the gameplay and forces you to fight more enemies, because you go through more trees. Then I added a basic menu and pause screen, which can only be accessed by pressing tab, which was for the sake of the web version. Then I added a main win screen and a death screen. I'm going to add more to this game in the future, I think. More boss fights, optimizing it to run better, because it's sort of become a passion project, and I want it to be better. By the way, if anyone knows why some features of my game work in the editor but not in the built version, I would be very appreciative if someone could leave a comment saying why. And maybe, while you're down there, subscribe. I mean, you made it through this far. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.